Thank you for joining us at Retro vs. Remake. Guys, we just passed our landmark episode 50. So, hey.
We did it.
RoboCop. Murph. So, this is episode 51. We wanted to try something different. One, you can tell we're back. The gang's back.
Boys are back in town.
Yeah, that was originally going to be G.I. Joe's back in town. So that's a good remake there. But yeah, we're back together, fully vaccinated. So, you know, if you want to get out there, get vaccinated, help your country. And yeah, it's good. It's good to be back in the same room. And in that same breath, we're going to try something a little bit different. Since we did hit the big 50, we wanted to appreciate that landmark by going over kind of our best of, worst of the series.
Yeah. So we're going to go over our top 3 originals, top 3 remakes, and then our top 3 originals we didn't like, top 3 remakes we didn't like, and then end it all with our best of both worlds. Which one do we think the original and remake is like superior of the 50 episodes we did? Nice.
We talked a little bit about this beforehand. There's some crossover, but that's okay. You know, movies are movies, and like you were saying, I think we have more similar tastes than we originally thought. When we started the series, I thought that we weren't going to agree about a lot of things. Turns out more in common than we thought.
Yeah. So one, we do have the same movie. We're just going to kind of get out of our order and just start talking about that movie right there. It's that way we don't have to hear us talk about the same movie two different spots. Yeah.
Yeah. And even though there's going to be crossover, I think, honestly, there are different reasons why I think we like these movies. So even with movies that we agree about, I think there's going to be enough to talk about in terms of variation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Diving right into this bad boy.
Dive right in. Cheers.
Cheers.
Here we go.
Welcome back. So, I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick.
Welcome to another episode of
Retro vs. Remake! We can say it at the same time now. We're not limited by Zoom.
I missed that. That was my favorite part of the show. So, jumping right into top 3 remakes.
Top 3 remakes.
We're going to start in kind of reverse order, so I'll give you my number 3 and work my way to my number 1.
Yep.
My number 3 in this scenario is The Thing. So, in terms of the remake, we're looking at the 1982 John Carpenter film starring Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, Keith David, awesome in it. And why this really captured my imagination as one of my top 3 remakes is that it has the elements of the story from the original, but does its own thing. And there are times where that works, and there are times where that doesn't work. But I would say in this scenario, the way Carpenter approached the series, I think it worked very well. There's like allusions to things that happened in the first movie that are part of this but are different. And I think what really makes this movie stand apart is this is one of the rare times where like the star power in the remake takes this over the top. So the original, The Thing, is a competent and a good movie. But if you were to ask me who stars in that film, I can't tell you. Making the monster a super vegetable in the original was a little rough for me, and I think John Carpenter really just smoothed out a lot of the edges. He made this cohesive story, really good practical effects, and I mean Kurt Russell pouring the fucking whiskey on the computer, you cheating bitch. Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of great moments in that movie, and that's why that's my number 3.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. Oh, wait, let me rephrase that. Yeah, I enjoyed that movie. I don't know if I call it a good movie, but it was enjoyable. Definitely a step up from the source material.
Sure.
So for sure. And again, it's one of those movies that's full of these practical effects that I think still look really well today. So,
Yeah. And what else I like about it is that there's more ambiguity in the ending than a lot of films. Like, I did enjoy the fact that it wasn't so close-ended what was going to happen. You can make assumptions, but yeah, I just thought that the step up from the original to this remake is what, there's a lot of choices here, and this is why this one eked out my list.
Good one. Good one. My number 3 is Little Shop of Horrors.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember when we did this episode, I just had so many good things to say about it. I just liked the way they interpreted it. You know, it was based, you know, Frank Oz and company did it, you know, it wasn't their original vision. It was already a musical.
Sure.
So they just took that musical and put it into theaters. But, you know, what they did obviously worked. I love the characters. You know, Steve Martin's dentist, still one of my favorite characters. And
So
I think
good.
of like all time in all movies.
Yeah.
He's so good in that. Even you know, Rick Moranis' character is a little annoying, but you know, he's still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, the plant is just so alive. He's just, and again, talking about practical effects, I really like those practical effects. And then if we go back and talk about, you know, what a step up from the original. Because that original was just so weird in the way it was kind of, like I said, more like a play instead of like a movie. Because like so many different weird things were happening that if you weren't paying attention, you'd completely miss. But I just like the way it's done in the remake. I like the songs.
Sure.
I usually don't like the addition of music in movies, but the songs were pretty funny. You know, some of them are a little bit like, all right, this one's a little bit long, but you know, again, going back to Steve Martin.
Suddenly Seymour.
Yeah, Suddenly Seymour. That's what I was thinking of. But it's a really enjoyable film. Even if you don't like musicals, I think you'll still enjoy it, and I certainly did.
Yeah, and I will say this too, that you mentioned the plant in the film, but Audrey too, the whole thing. I mean, that worth the price of admission right there. It's just great puppetry. The voice is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really fun movie, and I'm in the same boat. Like, musicals can be really miss for me versus hit, but this one, I think it's just consistently funny. Like you said, Steve Martin, that dentist and the leather jacket. It's funny as hell, man. And it took what was a comedic scene in the first movie and just upped the comedy so much more. And again, there's that star power coming back through, and you know, helping these remakes start their own, you know, kind of build their own ground, as it were. Good movie.
Don't forget that Bill Murray cameo too.
Nice.
Classic shit.
Nice. In terms of my number 2, I was thinking along the same lines of a lot of the movies that permeate my top 3 took something from the original and just made it different. Mm-hmm. And for me, my number 2 is 3:10 to Yuma, the 2007 film starring Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. And what I really like about this movie is that in the original 3:10, it's kind of like the bad guy is the star.
Right.
Like he's just relaxed. Take me to jail. I don't care.
You like pearls? I'll get your pearls.
Yeah.
My wife still says that to me. She thinks that's
It's so good.
That's good.
It's so good. And just the fact that he's able to be such a charmer, to the point where like you're rooting somewhat for the bad guy at the end of the film. And what I like about this remake is that they found a way to make the bad guys still have that turn where you kind of like, towards the end when you find out that the bad guy probably will get out of his situation, you're okay with that, right? Mm-hmm. But we also elevated our lead, you know. So Christian Bale's take on Dan Evans is just such a humanized role. Like in the original, the guy's kids just like him by default. Right. In the remake, Christian Bale is just kind of like he's got a war injury, so he's disabled. His kids resent him for that. His wife kind of resents him for that. And like you just watch this guy kind of get beat down this whole movie and try to use honor to make it through. And to be honest, that didn't work, right? So like it's beautiful that it's not just like the good guys and the bad guys. The bad guy won in this movie, but like the good guy is so beaten down to the bad guys. Come on. Come on, buddy. Hey, I bet you could get me on that train. And being able to elevate a character and still keep the bones of the movie, I just found it to be really strong, and I enjoyed 3:10 to Yuma.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. That's actually my number 1 is
Nice.
3:10 to Yuma.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really loved this movie, and I'm so surprised because, like I said, I did own it, and I only watched it once, and I thought, I kind of was like, that was okay. But watching it for this series, had such an appreciation for it. Maybe from seeing the original and then just what they were able to do with the remake. I mean, they don't really go like crazy outside the box. They don't change genres or anything. They include a few new characters. They expand on a couple of characters. And that was more than enough to really win me over. I mean, one character who was included heavily was the son, William Evans. And usually I always say, if you're going to include a kid, you better make him interesting or I'm going to hate this fucking movie.
Yeah.
And they made him like so good, and like he wasn't like holding them back at all.
No.
He was
pushing the movie forward in a lot of ways.
And just such a great character to include, and then just adding that arc of like, you know, trying to win the son over, because the son could have either went with Russell Crowe's character or Christian Bale's character, it seemed, and then just, you know, sticking with his guns, and then, you know, getting the sadder ending, which is like, damn it, why did he have to die? I wanted him to live. Just such great characters. They just really fleshed out the characters in this remake, and I really love what they did, and it's really true to the original, but just so much better in so many ways. And the original, like you said, is really good, but I really like what they did with the remake.
The original, I really enjoy that movie. Mostly, like I said, the antagonist is kind of the protagonist in the movie for me. Like, but the ending in the original is just very weak. Bye!
We both go right to the waving on the train. It's so bad. It's so cheesy, Hollywood.
Is that rain? It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I wasn't expecting Christian Bale's, I guess spoilers, but if you watch the series, you know this. I wasn't expecting Christian Bale's character to die. I thought he was going to kind of make his way through. And like you said, the son finally getting appreciation of his father through this villain who's like, hey, look, it may look like I'm more man than your father, but honestly, like, he's ultimately like, go that pathway, you know, don't be like me. And it just works so well. And that open-ended, lovely little ending where it's just like, he whistles, the horse follows the train, and it's like, all right, like, I'm assuming this guy's gonna get out, but you know, that's not a foregone conclusion. It's a really good movie. I'm glad that's your number one. It didn't quite hit number one status for me, just because a movie that I enjoyed, that I thought did the same thing, which was take an original story and just elevate it to another level. That was The Fly for me.
Oh, well, that's my number two, actually. So.
Oh, interesting. So we've got a crossover in terms of those films, and that makes sense. I mean, when there's good movies, it's okay for this type of crossover because I mean, it just shows you the quality of the film that we agree. But the 1986 version of The Fly with Jeff Goldblum is just such a good movie.
Yes.
It is deeply an 80s film in a way that, like, normally when I say that, I don't mean that in a good way. But like it just hits this like aesthetic. There's this whole theme to it. Like, Goldblum's kind of like, he's a nerd, but he's kind of got this like dark edge to him, almost like a sex appeal. And you watch his descent from human to fly, so ultimately animal, could be really, really goofy and dumb, and they handle it so well. The practical effects are practical. They look real.
It's amazing.
And they deal with more morality, like you know, in the original movie, like Fluffy the cat or whatever, or Dalio or whatever, disappears, right? In this movie, they like fuse a monkey with a dog. It's disgusting. It's awful stuff. And like Goldblum doing gymnastics in his weird warehouse. I just love the fact that they made this character who is really the mystery in the first film is that the scientist is like, where is he, right? Goldblum is heavily featured throughout the whole film, so we get to watch that transformation into a fly. And I think by doing this weird, like, Kafka-esque take on that, I just felt like they dealt with themes in a way that the original movie doesn't at all. And it was just such a strong movie.
No, I definitely agree with you. That's why it was my number two. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Those practical effects. Yeah. I mean, so good. I don't know how many makeup jobs they had to do on Jeff Goldblum, but whatever they did worked totally, because it still looks amazing today.
Yeah, it does.
Like, better than some CGI shit they would do. I mean, when he turns into, like, fully in the fly at the end, nothing quite.
Yeah,
but when you can still see Jeff Goldblum, like, under that makeup, that's when it looks really good. And, yeah, just the decision to have it like, let's follow the journey.
Yes.
Because you easily could have just said it's a man, now he's a fly, and now he's just terrorizing people as a fly.
Right.
But just to like go on that journey with him, see him slowly losing his humanity, it's just so interesting.
Fly, brundle.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then he's videotaping himself, and he's like vomiting. He's like, oh, that's embarrassing. You know, being Goldblum as he does it. It's so good. And really changing genres from like just a sci-fi movie to like a sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
So it's just well done.
Well done. I mean, again, like the original movie has its strong points. Like, I think the original movie plays really well in mystery, right? Like, there's this misdirection of who is the fly, what, like, how does it work and stuff like that. This movie explores that so much more, and like you see the physicality of becoming a fly. And it sounds goofy as hell saying it, but like watching it was like, yeah, it was great.
I mean, you think of the original Fly though. How goofy is it? Just like you hear the buzzing noise and they're just like, you don't actually see the fly.
You don't see anything.
And then when you see him at the end, when he's in the spider's web, just how it's like, oh yeah, kill that.
Yeah.
Kill that.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
That should not exist. So, breaking it down, just recap. For me, number 3 was The Thing. Number 2 was 3:10 to Yuma, and number 1 was The Fly.
And for me, 3 was Little Shop of Horrors, 2 was The Fly, and 1 was 3:10 to Yuma.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a close race. I mean, between 3:10 to Yuma and The Fly, I could definitely see why 3:10 to Yuma won out for you. And I think I would say what has to be the difference is the number of characters, just like in the action happening in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. The Fly, I think the story is what really put it over the top and how I came to my conclusion.
It's just so simple, the story of The Fly.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be overly complicated. It's just, here's a guy who's turning into a fly, watch his life totally slip away from him slowly.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good, you know. And we give Jeff Goldblum a lot of credit.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Gina Davis was so amazing
phenomenal.
in that movie. Yeah, without her and her reactions to just seeing him, you know, it doesn't really work because it could just come across as silly because he is he's Jeff Goldblum turning into a fly.
Right.
But it's just her genuine like horror, and then now she's pregnant. It's like, oh god,
Yeah.
oh wow, that nightmare sequence. Ooh,
Oh man, I forgot about that. But yes, that's a film. So jumping right into the top 3 originals.
Top 3 originals.
Starting again in reverse order, my number 3 in this scenario is Total Recall, the 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger film. And here's the thing. I know there are better movies out there. Don't at me, right? Don't say anything in the comments. I like this movie. I think that part of it is actually what actually put this on my list would be our RoboCop episode.
Oh.
Knowing the backstory of how, you know, was it Landis, or I forget his name, but knowing the backstory of how like the practical effects carried over from RoboCop into like Total Recall, Schwarzenegger starring in this film that somehow, like, you know, he's still doing the same thing. It was like, you know, the let off some steam, like that type of like catchphrasey stuff. But like, it's like a serious science fiction story.
right.
That just happens to have Arnold Schwarzenegger starring in it, and it works. I just really like the practical effects. Mm-hmm. I like that we never quite know, is this real? Is this is this recall? And the fact that you would think that you would be able to surpass this film in the remake department, and no. I mean, like Total Recall just held its own ground. I just really liked the story of the man who's kind of like tired of, you know, his existence as it is, trying to do something different, going to Mars. You've got Schwarzenegger, you got Sharon Stone, Michael Ironside's hilarious in it. I just like the film. I love the pacing and the bug-eyed Arnold at the end. Like, it makes no sense, but it's my number 3.
Yeah, you gotta love those practical effects again. Even like when he's dressed up as the woman, the 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And then, you know, it reveals itself to that it's Arnold. It's not CGI. It's practical effects, man.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. It's great how they did it too. Like, I like the ambiguity of it, because it could fit either narrative. It could be just a guy who's just tired of his life and wishes that he had something special going for him. Or he could really just be that secret agent that has memory erased and now he's fucking with himself and he's the bad guy, but now he's the good guy. So it really works well. And you're right. That was the perfect description of it. It's a really complicated sci-fi movie that just happens to have like all this action and one-liners in it. Yeah. And it's so enjoyable because of that.
And I think that's why it made my list. Because like I said, there are, trust me, there are better films. But like the whole thing coming together the way that it did, it just made my list, barely, but it made my list because Arnold pulls this off. Right. Like he pulls it off. And, you know, this idea of like blue sky over Mars. Is it real? Is it fake? This movie did a better job than the remake of that ambiguity. It did a better job of being fun. And like I said, you know, we can get technical all day about films. The reason that this made my list is because it's just a fun as hell movie. And one that I can watch a bunch. So, top 3 for me.
And let's not forget, there's no Mars in the remake, too.
Yeah, that's a problem. Earth and the bottom of Earth.
All right, so my number 3 original film, I tried to pick films that I hadn't seen before. And for my originals, they actually all ended up being that. So my number 3 favorite original was The Manchurian Candidate. This one was surprising to me because I didn't expect myself to like a Frank Sinatra film. It's funny because we're actually in his buddy's apartment. There's a huge Frank Sinatra, the mugshot, famous mugshot of Frank right there, just looking at me as I judge him.
I believe he went to jail for seduction.
So, but you know, the story of The Manchurian Candidate is, you know, it's bigger than just Frank Sinatra. So it's just such a compelling story. And Raymond Shaw's portrayal, just the way they made him so sympathetic, the way they drew out, like, you know, he was a cold guy, nobody really liked him, and then like he has this backstory that he was in love with this girl, and then his mom just totally came in and just kiboshed the whole situation. A very evil Angela Lansbury, which we don't really get. You know, Mrs. Potts doesn't usually come that hard in movies, but here she is, just being completely manipulative, and it just, you know, it was great. It was heartbreaking, and then it really pushed the limits. I thought he was really going to kill himself at the end of the movie. I was just so surprised. I enjoyed that ride wholeheartedly and was completely disappointed by the remake.
The remake was pretty bad.
So it's just one of those movies that was a pleasant surprise for me.
I appreciate that inclusion because I do really like the story of the Manchurian Candidate, Frank Sinatra's karate aside.
First martial arts portrayed in a Hollywood film.
Damn. So never mind. So keep that. Frank Sinatra's the first guy throwing sidekicks, mostly karate chops. That's interesting. But like, it's just such a. Again, going back to kind of like the Total Recall, it's such a good story, right? Like this guy who's unliked, unloved. You know, like that comes up in his conversation. He finally finds that in his life, and for him to be this pawn. In his mother's, and in this case, like as a father, somewhat, but like to be a pawn in this plan, to be used by his own family, by his own country, and ultimately like having to reconcile the fact that like he may have caused harm to the people that he loved. It's a great film, and you're right. It's bigger than Frank Sinatra, but Frank Sinatra he carries his own in this. I'm usually not big on Frank in movies either, but no, he was perfectly acceptable in this movie, and I think it was a really good movie.
Yeah, and can I just praise the one scene again when they're all being hypnotized, but you don't know it yet because they're all just at the garden party, and then the camera just pans around, just does a 360, phenomenal. And then it's just all these old ladies, and you're like, what the hell is happening here? Then it goes back, and it's like, wait, now the settings changed, and now it's all these communists and stuff. Right. So like, all done in one shot, just amazingly practical for the 60s.
Yeah, I mean that shot is phenomenal, and I think that when the remake tried to play with that, like they, it was more like flashing lights,
kind of more like in the horror
imagery,
aspect is what they tried to do.
But I love that subtle turn. Right, like, you're just okay. What's up with all these old ladies? And then, boom, there it is. The Chinese, the Russians, and it's a great scene. I'm glad you mentioned it.
And how it was different, like for the different people. Too.
Yes, that part of like your old lady is not my old lady.
Yeah. So it's good.
That's a great point, man. Awesome movie.
Solid film.
Awesome movie. Well, the Manchurian Candidate didn't quite make my list, but I completely agree with it making your list. It's a good movie. My number 2 in this case was Manhunter, the 1986 film.
That's actually my number 1, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Nice. You got William Peterson, and you've got Brian Cox. William Peterson's playing the Will Graham character from the, I guess, Red Dragon series. Brian Cox as the first Hannibal Lecter. Mm-hmm. And I had never seen this film before this show. And I had seen other Hannibal films. I saw Red Dragon at some point. But I was just so impressed, one, with this take on Lecter, which felt to me a little more, in a way, like plausible. He's kind of like laid back, like there's this danger to him. He definitely is manipulative, and Brian Cox plays that well. There is obviously only one true Hannibal. The gentleman just won another Oscar. Hopkins. But William Peterson was really the standout for me. His vulnerability, again, going back to talking about children in movies and stuff like that, his scene where he's at the grocery store and he's explaining to his son his mental breakdown, and it was like, I went away for a while and I did some things, and like the kid taking that in, and we don't know what he did. we know that chasing this Hannibal Lecter character broke him mentally somehow, but we don't know how. And because we have that vulnerability in these scenes, it just feels so much more tense as he's going deeper and deeper into this chase for our Red Dragon killer. And you're like, is this going to consume him? And I just thought that the movie had a very good pace. It was definitely another one of those movies that was pure. It was a solid 80s movie.
Oh yeah.
It was an 80s movie. Like that Tiger song was kind of crazy. But I really enjoyed seeing the Hannibal Lecter story by different actors than what I was used to seeing. And I thought that Peterson's Graham really put the movie over the top for me. And Tom Noonan's Dollahide is just... that was dark. That was scary. Good movie, and I really... That's why Manhunter is my number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie. Like I said, it's my number 1. I guess I'll start with Dollahide. Yeah, what a great portrayal. Like, you're like, that guy is gonna play a serial killer in a movie. I'd be like, he is gonna play a serial killer. I just remember like his first scene. He's got the stocking over his eyes, and then he just like, he's like showing him like all the sides. Do you see? He's like, oh my god, this guy's so fucking creepy, man. Perfect casting. But going back to it, they show a little bit of Hannibal, but obviously because it's not Anthony Hopkins, so they're not going to highlight him. So I kind of like that he's just this background character, and I do like that the focus is William Graham and just his own struggles, and then like how he has to really become the serial killer kind of to figure out how to stop them. So just such a great portrayal by
watching it, right? Yeah,
exactly. I love those are my favorite scenes. Like when he's just watching the tapes, he's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch! You couldn't help yourself. You took your gloves off. You son of a bitch!" And it's cheese, like you said, it's 80s cheese. But oh man, I love it.
I don't know. There's enough of that edge on this movie that just like it gets itself out of that 80s the neon, the flashy, the it's gritty. It's a gritty film. Love it.
It's so good. But he also has like another moment where he like has to figure out like how did he know? Why did he bring a lock cutter if there's no lock there? Like how did he figure that out? And then like he's just so the wheels are just turning in his head. Then Jack Crawford's just like watching him in like amazement, like holy shit! He's making all these goddamn connections. That and then you got the amazing soundtrack playing in the background. I listened to that on the way here. I just want to I was listening to the Manhunter soundtrack over here. It is such a good soundtrack. It does have, heartbeat.
Listen to the heartbeat.
It's got those songs, but then, William Graham's theme, which is like kind of a take on Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. Oh, it's such a good song. I really enjoyed this film, and I was just so surprised because I had watched I'd watched Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, Red Dragon. I never watched Manhunter because I was like, that's not Anthony Hopkins, so it's not a canon. But wow, this movie's amazing. It's so good. I went back and rewatched Silence of the Lambs, And I watched the whole Hannibal series.
Nice.
Just because I wanted to see William Graham go head-to-head with the Tooth Fairy. Unfortunately, that part I feel like isn't as good.
Yeah.
Because like they just do all this other crazy shit in that show. But it was just so good that I just really dove into the whole series again. It was
Yeah. I mean, almost like the trifecta of Graham, the Tooth Fairy, and Lecter, just like that interplay. There's constantly a sense of danger, and one of the things that we highlighted when we watched the films was that Graham's family was more involved.
Yeah.
And it made the stakes just so high, so creepy and scary. Like you said, the stalking, just everything about it freaked me out. And we mentioned on the podcast a little bit of overkill. I happened to watch the director's cut, and really the only discernible difference that we made out was at the end. Graham shows up to one of the families. He saves house, and he's like, "I just wanted to see you." It's like, all right,
creepy.
Everybody crack this guy. But great film. So you're my number 2. You're number 1.
Yep.
And my number 1 should be almost no surprise to anyone. My number 1 is The In-Laws, the 1979 film starring Peter Falk and Alan Arkin. And let me tell you something. Peter Falk's Vince Ricardo is a hell of a lot of fun because he's just like this kind of like lovable scamp in a certain way. But Alan Arkin, sort of straight man, Sheldon Cornpet, is just one of the best characters in film history. This is another one of those movies where we're playing with this idea of like what's real and what's not, right? So like Total Recall had that element. This movie really had this element. You're looking at Vince Ricardo, he's just kind of like some guy. He's watching the Mets at some diner. But he works for the CIA? I don't think so. Turns out, yeah. Yeah, he works for the CIA. And his just nonchalant approach to crime fighting.
Yeah.
And the fact that he brings in his future in-law, I guess, I don't even know what you call it.
I don't know.
When the parents come over, I don't know. But the movie has so many, it has very believable kind of like lows and very unbelievable highs that they pull off and make you believe things. Like one example is they go to Vince Ricardo's office, and it's like the JFK picture is like, "Hey Vince, we we almost got him, huh?" JFK. He's like, "What, the Bay of Pigs?" I love that fact. It gets a little goofy at times, like it's all right. That part didn't age well, but what did age well was the chemistry of Alan Arkin and Peter Falk. And honestly, you could put those two in any movie, in any scenario, and I bet I would like it. And I really just love their chemistry, and that's why The In-Laws is my number 1.
No, this was my number 2. So again, crossover here. Like I said, it's a movie I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And for a movie to come out in 1979 and still like be able to crack me up to that level.
Serpentine.
I mean, how good is that? Alan Arkin for me is the reason I love this movie so much. His pent-up rage about this man he just met he's trying not to flip out on because he is going to be, an in-law one day. And he's just like, what the fuck is it? I just got shot at. He is so good in that movie. He sells it for me. And man, I'd known Alan Arkin. I'd seen him before, but this is peak Alan Arkin for me. Give me more roles like this because I just loved it. I was laughing like so much during this movie. I could not believe how funny it is. It still holds up today. It's amazing.
It's the subtle things in this movie. Like we mentioned the Serpentine line, but like there's a scene where he goes around the car and he's gonna open the car door and he's like, you forgot the Serpentine. Yeah. So he goes back out into the line of fire and just like Alan Arkin playing those roles, Alan Arkin jumping on the car.
Yeah.
Like did his own stunt from what I could see. Maybe not, but I don't know, like he's the star of the film because he's the most normal person in the movie.
Right.
Like he's aggressively normal, but he's got, like he mentioned, that anger streak, and like he loves his daughter, so he doesn't want to make this a whole thing. But Vince Ricardo, he doesn't trust him. And And throughout the movie, they start to gain more trust for each other, even though they really shouldn't. Vince Ricardo is being irresponsible the whole time. But I love everything about their chemistry. I love at the end that they both kind of agree. It's like, hey, where'd this money come from? Yeah. So talk about it. And yeah, because the humor from 1979 carried over into 2020 and 2021, right. It's my number one, and I understand why it's your number two.
Yeah, it's just a very strong comedy that holds up today. There's not many comedies from back then, I can say, that are on this level. No, it's incredible. It's
just solid movie, and I'm trying to think of scenes where it could have aged poorly, but overall, no. Like,
it's just honestly the hand thing. Is the only thing.
The hand thing was pretty. Yeah, that was a little rough.
That was weird.
But whatever. They did a whole South Park run off of that hand.
Yeah. So we got Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah. Taco favorite kisses.
Oh man. Well, Dan, I'm gonna recommend you grab another brewski because we're about to get into our top 3 worst remakes.
Oh boy.
Top 3 worst remakes.
This was probably the easiest one to come up with. Actually, maybe it might have been the hardest because there's so many that we're like, that one's bad, that one's bad.
Yeah. I don't really recall how much carryover, so we're just gonna kind of run this, and wherever we overlap, we overlap. Yeah. So, as always, going in reverse order. My number 3 in terms of top worst remakes is the Amityville Horror. The 2005 film starring Ryan Reynolds. You've got Chloe Grace Moretz, Rachel Nichols. People I generally like. People I think are decent in film. This movie just misses. It misses really hard.
That was terribly miscast.
Yeah.
You can't cast Ryan Reynolds as a serial killer. It just doesn't work.
That's true.
Even back then.
No,
before
right.
Deadpool, it just doesn't work.
Because he's fun, right? Like at the beginning of the movie, he's really, really fun. You're like, oh, I like this guy because it's Ryan Reynolds. He's got that like the great smile, handsome bastard, and he just had, like you said, that Deadpool energy of like he can play serious, he can play funny. He's actually he does a little bit of that in the In-Laws remake of this, like he plays the role of like he knows what's going on and he does know what's going on really well. In this movie, he does a lot of that. He doesn't know what the hell is going on throughout most of the film, but it's just rough, man. Like you said, it's a miscast because he does not read as serial killer. And it's a miscast because they make him do things that just don't feel right.
Yeah.
They don't feel right. Like, it's really hard. I mean, there's another movie where a dog gets killed in the movie, but like, we're not supposed to be behind that character at all, right? Like in Insomnia is what I'm referencing. But like in this film, I'm supposed to kind of be behind Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Because by the end of the movie, it's not like he became this killer and we're done with him. It kind of like, oh no, he was possessed. Like, so it just felt like the pacing was wrong. Ryan Reynolds being kind of like this devious asshole throughout most of the film, and then them flip-flopping on that felt wrong. Mm-hmm. The kids were okay in the movie, but like they didn't really work because like the babysitter scene, for instance.
Oh yeah.
Where like in the original movie, there's no like sexual tension with the babysitter, so like you just watch it without commentary. This, they made the babysitter kind of hot and sexy, and she knows what's going on, and then it's just like it didn't work. It didn't work because the kids were too young, and I just felt like, really what it was Ryan Reynolds having to be a dick throughout the movie made me hate the movie, and the things that they made him do just made the movie no fun, and I didn't like the movie at all.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan Reynolds just horribly cast in that movie, and I don't sympathize with his character, George, the way I did with the guy in the original, because he didn't, cross the line and kill that dog. When Ryan Reynolds kills the dog, I'm going to say relatively early in the movie, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not on your side anymore, I don't care. And he has this really weak redemption arc, as opposed to the original where he actually like snaps out of it. He's like, wait, I'm gonna go back, and he doesn't kill the dog, he actually saves the dog in the original film. So
big difference.
So like we don't even know if Ryan Reynolds is back by the end of the film because he hasn't done anything to show that he's not going to kill everybody. But in the original, he at least saves the dog. So he's like, okay, I'm back to normal. Sorry about that. My eyes look weird, right?
Yeah. Like George in the original, like yes, he's a stepfather and everything like that, but like I don't know, like his chemistry with the wife was really like nice throughout the film, and when it got bad, you're like, oh man, that kind of sucks. But like you said, he was able to snap out of it, and they lean more into the occult.
Yeah.
In terms of the basement was like a portal to hell, basically, which is kind of weird, but okay. That was okay, but like the remake didn't dive into full on like out there occult stuff enough. So like, is Ryan Reynolds the dick?
Right.
Is it the ghost? Like, it felt more him than the ghost, and that made the movie. And like you mentioned, the redemption for George.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there was redemption versus the original, where it felt like there was. And I thought you're making some good points. I think that's what makes the original work, is that we are still behind the guy,
right,
even if he's being bad.
He was sort of murderous, but he didn't actually kill anybody. And he does, show that he's not.
And he still paid the caterer. What's my damn? Yeah.
All right, my number 3 remake that I did not like is Halloween. 2007, Rob Zombie's Halloween. I mean,
I'll just say while you're saying that, your number 3 is my number 1.
Okay.
So it's fine, but just so you know, I hate this movie too.
Okay, yeah. I didn't like anything Rob Zombie did. We have like that half-hour origin story following young Mikey Myers, and it just didn't do anything for me. I didn't care about like, why is Michael Myers the way he is? Wait, so that's why he likes masks? Because he drew them all the time and he wears them on his walls, and who gives a fuck, man? I like the original. Some people are just born evil.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for that.
Some people are.
That's great. And then like, you don't even see our heroine in the remake till like, I don't know, like an hour in or something.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I don't even remember the actress that portrayed her. I mean, then like, how integral is Jamie Lee Curtis in that original film?
my god.
Oh my gosh. So it's like, I don't know, this fascination with the villain. There was no payoff. Yeah. And then, I know I'm going to go here, but like the unnecessary rape scene of these orderlies who are already pieces of so that I didn't like. And let's make them even worse and kind of make Michael Myers a hero.
And make the scene longer than it should be.
It's just so many unnecessary things in that remake. In a story that could pretty much just be like, let's just make an evil dude just evil, and then like, I'll follow that. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, the reason why this hit my number 1 is some of the stuff you're talking about, which is, all right, like we're doing this more intricate origin story, right? Like the family dynamic, I thought was filmed well. It was uncomfortable and stuff like that, but it was too long. It was too long. Like we saw that the dad was a piece of shit, and he might be sexually harassing the sister, and all this backstory to try to make Michael Myers plausible, right? I guess like why he might be a killer, but then they just fumble the ball because we spend 30 plus minutes in this hospital, doing things that don't matter.
Yeah, like they should have showed us the hospital gym, how it got so big.
That would have been cool.
That would have made sense.
That would have been cool, kind of like a Cape Fear type thing. See, and that's the thing. Like Cape Fear handles the exact same sequence in 2 minutes, right? He's got crazy tattoos and he's big. Done, right? Like we could still do the I kill my family thing, but I think it got bogged down because we did that, and then we spent so much time in the hospital,
right?
And it was inconsequential what happened in the hospital. Like just too long. And then by the time, like you mentioned, we get to our main actress versus like a Jamie Lee Curtis, who's in the movie basically most of the film. We get behind her, we know who she is. We know why we're rooting for her, and she's subverting expectation. Like the way that she comes back and attacks Michael Myers is not what you're expecting, because everyone else is just kind of just getting swept up in the gore. By the time we meet her in this film, I'm already out. Like I think the last interesting thing that it wasn't interesting was the big Joe guy or whatever, like the trucker, which is another backstory I didn't need, like how he got the weird outfit, like the mechanic's outfit. It's like it doesn't matter. Halloween 2007 does not work because it doesn't work. Like there's too much happening that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The mask, they got the mask on the jail cell, and they don't even dive into it. They're just there. He just makes them.
Yeah, he just makes them. Because he had the mask the whole time because he got it when he was a kid, so he was going to get it anyway as an adult. So what the fuck is he making mask?
So bad.
And Malcolm McDowell's terrible in that.
He was awful. He was awful. And I like my...
Yeah, so
I like him. He was real bad. He was real bad. The whole thing was just bad. Like, it was trying to do exposition where it's not needed.
Exactly.
The original Halloween film, very simple. Kid wearing a mask from his point of view, kills his sister. That puts him in a jail, and then like they don't waste time with him at the jail. In fact, most of the scary stuff that happens in this correctional facility are like the kind of zombie-esque guys walking around at night. And we really just see Michael Myers in action in the original film. In action. In this remake, we see him talking to bullies, talking to his dad, talking to a nurse, talking to Danny Trejo, talking to big whatever his name, talking and 3 hours later almost. It's too long too.
You're right. It's completely inconsequential because we know he's going to be Michael Myers. There's no saving this guy. We're not in this fucking, gonna see him like, oh, I'm gonna be a normal citizen now. Thanks, Doc. You saved me. It's like, no, we're waiting for you to become Michael Myers, and you're just delaying that and making me watch this bullshit.
And they even undercut themselves by having him flinch in that moment later in the film. It's a small moment, but he's
Very
like,
end.
I don't know, am I gonna kill you? Nope. You have created a monster. Make him a monster. It doesn't matter if it's his sister or whatever. He's gonna try to kill her, and we're gonna watch that. And we didn't get that. It was a bad movie.
Bad movie.
Bad movie.
Bad movie.
Whew. So that was your number 2, right?
That was my number 3.
That was your number 3. That was my number 1. I just hated that movie so much.
Should I go on to my number 2?
Yeah, let's hear your number 2.
All right. So my number 2, Point Break.
Okay, your number 2 is also my number 2.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow. What? Just a terrible movie. It's not Point Break. It's not Point Break, man. Point Break is Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze lovingly looking into each other's eyes, like these bros that they are. That's what Point Break is. I don't even understand the whole thing about like you gotta find the line and we gotta give back because we take that whole stupid storyline that was like, what?
As a video game fan, you'll understand this. This is a reskinned game. Like this had nothing to do with Point Break, and they were like, well, we got all this footage of this bullshit. I honestly think I would have liked the movie more if it wasn't called Point Break.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it was like Extreme Bros, like or whatever.
The Extreme Bros.
Because like I get what they were trying to do. It's like this movie that's trying to show reverence and respect to extreme athletes, right? It starts with the goofy dirt bike or motorcycle scene.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So bad. That scene alone is why this is on my list, because some guy we don't give a fuck about or even know,
he dies so early.
He just dies, and we're just like, wait, am I supposed to feel something? What is happening? It was just so comically bad how they inserted that scene.
And it's like the beginning of your movie. I mean, Luke Bracey and Edgar Ramirez, I'm sure they're great actors. They're not Johnny Utah. They're not Brody. And you can call them that in post. You can A&R whatever you want onto the film. But this is not Point Break.
They even did I'm pretty sure they added an extra scene. Well, why don't we go and call you Johnny Dakota right now? Is that...
Yeah. Like
Johnny Utah. No, my bad. Yeah, they even added, now you're going to be known as Johnny Utah. Okay, I guess. Yeah. Like, that wasn't even his name, so that's a clear indication that this was not a Point Break movie. Not
at all. The scene where they have him training at the FBI, that's clearly a reshoot. That's clearly to try to make this cohesive. There are scenes when he's talking to the detective overseas, and he's like, so just so we're clear, you're going after Bodie, right? It was like, yeah, I'm going after Bodie. So like, because the movie is not... It's not a remake.
It's not a remake.
It's not a remake.
It's a Hollywood studio going, well, nobody's going to fucking watch this.
Yes.
Let's just call it Point Break and do some reshoots. That'll make money. And then just that, that studio fucking people, the studios just think people are that fucking dumb.
Yeah, they think we're stupid, and we're not stupid. That was not Point Break. Point Break is its own thing, and like it's it can be polarizing, I think, because there are very strong elements to Point Break that I really like. There's some things that don't make any goddamn sense. But kind of like Total Recall, there's this fun factor, right?
Yes.
Like the star power, the Swayze Reeves connection. It doesn't matter what they're doing; those two are in the movie.
I mean, it's 90s Keanu. I mean, what more could you ask for? This almost made my top 3 originals, but because I had seen it, I decided to go a different route. But yeah, I mean, especially compared to that source material.
Right.
I believe Catherine Bigelow was the director.
I believe so.
So Catherine Bigelow's film was just so good. Like, I was surprised how good it was. Like I said before, it was a movie I rented when I was a kid because it's like, okay, it looks like an action movie, and I liked it because it had boobs in it. So it's like that. But like the action was just like really good.
Yeah, I know.
Like that one chase scene where like he's just chasing him through like houses and like just going everywhere.
Oh, when they shoot Flea, so good.
Or Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, when they shoot Anthony Kiedis, I'm like, yeah, we keep all that.
Well, technically, he shoots his own foot.
Yeah, that's true. But no, like that action scene is good. I would say my biggest beef with Point Break, the original, is that third act it's a little loose. Lori Petty, we got her. We're holding her hostage. Like that part's a little shaky. Honestly, even the whole plot. I am an FBI agent. That's the whole thing's shaky, but it's held together through pure charisma and beach football. So, yeah, thumbs up. And fucking Busey, I got you. What's up?
Oh man, I forgot about Busey. He's so good in that.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, see, we're speaking fondly about the original. I have no fond words for the remake. I don't even remember what happened, to be honest. Like, they climbed they did a chase scene that was like free solo climbing.
Yes.
While that guy's climbing, drive around and just like fucking like what? I'm gonna climb Yosemite so I can like catch this guy. Both of you gonna be really tired, and whoever gets up first, just kick the other guy. Movie over. I just rewrote the entire Point Break.
It was really bad.
Well, that was a bad remake.
I mean, I'll give it this. Those action sequences were practical.
Yeah, they were.
They did the jump. What was it? The glider jumping?
Yeah, with the flying suits.
Yeah.
No, the action sequences were really good. The problem was trying to...
That doesn't make a movie, though.
No, it doesn't. And trying to, like, shoehorn in the Point Break plot to, like, some decent, interpretations of action or extreme sports.
Right.
Extreme athletes. That was a big take. Like, clearly, this was a movie about extreme athletes that got reskinned. Yep. And it didn't work.
Nope. Not at all.
For me, like, we hit Amityville, we hit Point Break, and Halloween. I mean, those are my 3. I think you got one left.
Yeah, I got one more. My number one, I'm surprised you didn't have this on your list. The movie that I did not like, and I don't think should exist, is The Producers remake. Now, technically, again, like Little Shop of Horrors, not its own thing based on the Broadway play. And I'm just going to preface it by saying this. I'm sure it's enjoyable if you're watching it live, like this long-ass thing, but to expand it and put it into a movie and then just to add these horrible jokes and songs and things that really don't make sense to me. I was rolling my eyes a lot, and I really just didn't like the movie at all.
Yeah, I mean, plays are plays, movies are movies. Musicals can be movies.
They can, like Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah,
works perfectly fine as a film.
Yeah.
Producers remake did not.
No, they stuck too close to the source material in terms of the musical, not the original movie, but didn't movie it up enough to like make it work, right? Like, I think there probably could have been more coherent and cohesive scenes between the songs. Yeah. They just leaned into, we have these songs. Honestly, I think they were just like, we paid for it, so we might as well. We might as well use it. But like, it dragged and it didn't work.
I like the original. I like the Gene Wilder. He's one of my favorites. He's so good, and I was just dreading that remake. Yeah, I don't know. Something about Matthew Broderick just it didn't work for me. I mean, I'm sure he's fine in like if you see it on Broadway, but I don't know. It didn't work for me. Even Nathan Lane, like I'd say he's a step up from Matthew Broderick, but zero Mostel. It's just his.
Oh, that floppy hair.
Yeah, he's just such a dirty looking guy.
Yeah.
It's like you can believe that guy's banging old ladies just to get money.
Nah, and like I said, Zero Mostel, who I really only know him from that film, but like from the opening scene where you see him, you're like, okay, this guy's got something going on. And Gene Wilder. I mean, he's brilliant, you know, in pretty much anything he does. This remake misses the mark on a lot of points. One, the chemistry between Zero and Gene Wilder was better. Broderick, you're right, they play him up a little too much of like the kind of hapless idiot, you know. Uma Thurman is phenomenal. Looks the part, but like they don't do much with her. And you know the songs just aren't good. They're too long and they're not that good.
You know, just the too many gay jokes.
Make It Gay is
that
like
just don't you know. I'm okay with like some gay jokes here and there, but like they just that's the whole joke. It's like he's gay and we're just gonna string it out for another 12 minutes now. It's like, well, you need to build on that. Like you can make that funny. Like I keep bringing up like a gay Hitler. Like you can make a gay Nazi. Like they did in Jojo Rabbit. They made some gay Nazis. Those guys are funny.
I did finally see Jojo Rabbit. It's good.
That's really good. It's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, so like I'm not against like making a gay joke here or there, but like that the whole thing is like he's gay. Get it? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. It's like, all right, do something else with it, you know? Right. It's like because we're on it for like so fucking long.
Right.
And the whole thing is just that he's gay. It's like, all right.
And even like Will Ferrell, who's actually one of the strong points in the movie, it's like he did the same song basically twice. I know they're different songs, but it's the same goddamn thing. I don't know. Yeah, they just it was too long. The kind of like the turn where they're mad at each other is too short and inconsequential. You know, the original movie kind of got it done. Like, there wasn't much else to explore. I could, like you mentioned, I could see it on Broadway, and wanting to see the producers on Broadway. Right. I couldn't watch this in theaters. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you're right. That ending was rushed. It just came out of nowhere. There was the rift between the two guys, and then he just came back for no reason. Yeah. Apparently, there were songs cut from the show. Kind of important to the plot, though, because it just felt shoehorned in at the end, or just wrapped up too quickly. Yeah, for me. Anyway.
If you there's a reason why plays have intermissions, right? Like we can reset, go get some popcorn, go get some wine, beer, or whatever, and come back, right? Like this movie needs a reset, but because that's not how movies work, doesn't work. I agree with you. It's a really bad film. Just didn't quite make my list.
Stick with the original. I mean,
yeah.
That's the only Springtime for Hitler.
Springtime.
It's such a catchy song.
Honestly, they did it bigger in the original. That's kind of crazy.
I feel like we said this in the review, but by having so many musicals, when you finally get to the actual musical in the film, it just feels so underserved because all the other musicals have been so big. Yeah. And that one just felt so much smaller.
I agree.
But like you're thinking these two idiots are trying to make this flop, so they're gonna make something terrible. They actually made something pretty like flashy and showy, and with like tight choreography it was and catchy songs. So again, it's just the strength of the original over the remake.
I will say this after we watched that, it said that she did have Springtime for Hitler in her iPod back in the day. So it is that catchy.
It's a catchy song. You know, it's a good thing it's written by Mel Brooks too. So it's okay. It's not written by like pro-Nazis.
Totally. So moving forward, I mean those are the three top three worst originals.
Top 3 worst originals.
Okay, now this one was a little bit harder.
This was very difficult.
Yeah, I mean because obviously these films. Somebody enjoyed them enough that we felt we needed a remake or more of them. So it's kind of just, I guess, the films that we didn't enjoy, I guess, particularly.
Right. And I will say this with a caveat that, like, it's not that I necessarily didn't enjoy these films. It's just they weren't the strongest. Some of them I didn't enjoy. And our list is so full of good movies. Not necessarily good remakes, but good originals. That this was very difficult, but I took a crack at it.
All right.
So
what you got?
So my first top 3 worst originals, I feel bad saying it, but the 1960s Little Shop of Horrors, which is actually not that bad of a movie, but it's dated, right? The plot is pretty thin, in terms of Jonathan Hayes playing Seymour Krelborn, Jackie Joseph playing Audrey. Like, you've got this kind of hapless guy that works at this flower shop. Events happen, and he eventually, he gets this plant that's the best plant he's ever seen. Like, it's a pretty consequential. People give a shit about this plant. He gives a shit about Audrey, and throughout the movie, we just kind of play in that space a little bit. There's not a lot of room to go. Like, when they do go out into town, and like he has to get people for Audrey the plant to eat. It's a little goofy, the way it's done. I really don't have a lot negative to say about it, but I just felt that the remake is so strong.
Yeah.
That and I know that made your list.
Right.
That the remake is one of those things where hey, should I watch the original or the remake? Well, in this case, watch the remake. So that's why Little Shop of Horrors hits my list. I don't want to dunk on it too bad, because it's not a very bad movie, but it's a 1960s film that just it does what it does. But I think a modern audience probably won't appreciate it. So it's on my list.
Yeah, I could see, especially compared to the remake, that making a list, because it is kind of boring. We talked about this. It's kind of more like a play. Again, it's one of those things that might be more interesting just to see people perform than actually see it as a movie, because it just feels like that when watching it. You just there's nothing really cinematic about this. I'm just watching a bunch of people kind of talk. But I will say a couple things in defense of it.
Sure.
Mr. Mushnick I think is hilarious in that movie. When after he sees Seymour kill his first body, he's like, he just goes, he's like, I need some drinks. Just give me some drinks. So I do like Mr. Mushnick. I do not like Seymour in the original.
Yeah, Seymour's rough.
A terrible character. He was just overly annoying, and I didn't sympathize with him at all.
Guy feels so bad.
I didn't really care for him, and I didn't understand why Audrey.
And Audrey's kind of dumb too.
Yeah, because I don't understand why you're into him. I thought it was funny though to see Seymour have cheerleaders. Because
that was fun.
Plan. So there's some fun to be had, but I could see a modern audience being pretty bored by it.
I think pacing wise, because like I mentioned, when he goes out to get more food for Audrey the plant, they do the same thing 2 or 3 times in the movie.
Yeah,
it's not great. I think someone literally gets a rock dropped on their head.
Yeah, and then remember that weird scene with the prostitute?
Yeah,
it was it definitely didn't age well.
Yeah, I will say that the ending is dark and horrific.
Yes.
So I'll give them that.
Yes, going to fight the plant and then becoming one of the little plants yourself. Wow. Dark turn movie.
Dark turn. But again, like we said, this is going to be a difficult one for both of us. But if I had to choose, Little Shop of Horrors, the 1960 film, is in my top 3 worst originals. Again, big grain of salt in that.
Alright, so we'll go to my number 3. Again, just to reiterate, this was hard to make this list, so I'm mostly just going off of movies I didn't really enjoy, and all of these movies I hadn't seen before. Again, a lot of people might like this movie, but I did not enjoy it while I was watching it, and my number 3 of originals I did not like is Conan the Barbarian. I did not like this movie at all. I don't know, I heard so many good things about it, and people love Conan, they love Schwarzenegger in it, but I was just watching it, and I was looking for something to hold on to let me. I couldn't find anything. It's such a bad movie. I don't know. It's I just didn't get it. The action was okay, I guess, but the story and just didn't make any sense to me at all. And I know I shouldn't be looking for good story going to the Barbarian, but I don't know. I guess just because it is kind of regarded as a classic in a lot of people's eyes, so I was my expectations were a little bit on the higher side.
Sure.
And it was just not met at all. And I don't know, I was really bored watching it, and it was just people like this movie. It just didn't connect with me, unfortunately.
I think it's a nostalgia factor. I think that some people just have a high regard for it. Honestly, same thing as we were saying with Total Recall. Schwarzenegger is able to take a subject matter that you may not care about and make it work for you because it's Schwarzenegger. But I get what you're saying, because this movie does not have a coherent scene to scene sort of arc, right? Like, it's just like, this thing happened, then this thing happened, and this thing happened. And like you said, some of those things are actually really fucking boring. You know, some of those things are outlandish. Like, he'll get captured and enslaved, turn the salt wheel or the sand wheel for a while. And it's like, hey, you want to bang these chicks? It's like, yeah, sure.
Let's put him out to stud.
Yeah. Oh, you bang a witch? She's still a banshee.
Throw in the fire.
Yeah. Get rid of her. I do like some elements of it. I like when the chemistry between his friends, like the woman that's the Valkyrie and his kind of like archer friend, like that worked okay. The scene where he's like dying on the tree of woe, dated, but like it's interesting enough. But yeah, I think you really have to give a shit about Arnold Schwarzenegger being big and swinging a sword for this to work. And I like the movie, but I get where you're coming from. It's not actually like a cohesive, coherent movie. It's just kind of like, it's an experience. Let's put it that way.
It is. Maybe if I watch it again, but watching it, I was just really bored, and I just kept checking the time. So just not for me.
Yeah.
That one. I like a dumb action movie every now and then, but for some reason I just can't connect with Conan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think what really puts this film over the top is more of like the character design, costumes, things like that. The scope of it, like, it does feel big and fantasy, but like I think you have to have an appreciation for the Conan story to even want to be on this trip. So
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but even that, like, if you're really a Conan, like the book series fan, then you hate this movie too, because like it has nothing to do with anything, to be honest. I get that. This next one for me, I don't think we're gonna agree, but my number 2 was the Amityville Horror.
I don't agree.
He does not agree. The 1979 film. I'm okay with the movie, right? I think this, again, comes down to personal preference. I'm not a big horror movie guy. I thought that this movie was definitely serviceable. I liked James Brolin's George Lutz. I liked Margot Kidder in the movie. Mm-hmm. I liked a lot of things about like the actors themselves, but I found the subject matter kind of, for me, kind of boring. The push-pull with like the Catholic Church was like not as epic of a standoff as you would expect, really. Like, the priest is kind of there and he's kind of gone.
Well, he gets fucked, Laura.
Well, yeah, he does.
I'm just blind for some reason. What the fuck is happening to me?
All the guy wanted to do was help out. But it's the little things in this movie, and someone moving into a house that kind of sucks, whatever. They just eventually kind of just move out, right?
Yeah, the ending is weak. I'll give you that.
Yeah. But like the in between is not terrible, but just it didn't keep me engaged enough. And I mean, like, some of, again, the highlights of the action are, where's my damn wallet? And like, because that happens, I just, again, really what it comes down to, I don't like horror films, and this one didn't do enough to make me say I like this horror film. So we're splitting hairs when it comes to the top 3 worst originals, and that's why I put this on my list.
That's fair enough. I mean, if you don't like horror movies, I'm not going to do anything to convince you here. I will say, I really like James Brolin and Margot Kidder. I think their chemistry in that movie is honestly why I'm on board with that movie. Just because I do like Margot Kidder and what she does, and then just to see James Brolin kind of like turning against her, I am just like, I'm genuinely worried about her in the way I'm not worried about her or her character in the remake.
Right.
So just their portrayals, I think, are pretty strong.
Yes, they are.
So that's why I enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So I'll say this, that I 100% agree with you that the characters are strong. It really is a subject matter for me, and again, like I said, at like Margot Kidder's brother's or sister's wedding, like. He loses the wallet, like like that's one of the high points of in terms of action in the film. So it's like because of that, I do deduct points. But like their portrayal, I 100% agree with you. Margot Kidder and James Brolin are phenomenal in this movie. Still worth a watch, even if I don't like it. If you like horror films, check it out.
Yeah, definitely better than the remake. Absolutely. So. Okay, I'll go with my number 2, and we might have a crossover here. Number 2 original I didn't care for. Again, another movie that I kept hearing was a classic. I had never seen this movie before, but finally watching it for this series, I was bored out of my mind, and that is Red Dawn. Yeah,
so there is crossover. Red Dawn is my number 1 in terms of worst originals.
Yep.
So let's hear it, man.
Yeah, I mean, to just start like the movie and then like 6 minutes in, like they're already invading, and then it's like, well, I don't even know who these characters are. Why am I rooting for them? I guess I'm rooting for them because they're just being invaded. So I'll just randomly root for them. Like I couldn't describe one characteristic or trait of any of the characters that are our heroes in the movie, except that they're fighters. That's it, and they're young kids. Mm-hmm. And then randomly,
they're Wolverines.
Wolverines, you're right there. I'm sorry, the Wolverines. But for some reason, they're the only ones resisting the whole time.
Right.
So it's like, well, when you free these people who are like about to get killed or prisoners, what happens? Do they just trickle back into society? Like, why are we just sticking with kids being like the army? Like, I get it. Like, maybe that's the whole concept. Like, let's just have this kid army. Well, then don't have them constantly freeing prisoners. Yeah. Maybe just have them taking out soldiers the whole time that are like, I don't know, just patrolling or something. I don't know. It just felt really weak to me. I didn't understand any of the characters. Again, just going back to characters. Yep. I didn't connect with any of the characters. And then like one of the kids just randomly gets shot because like he might have done something that we never actually saw on screen, and then there's like no consequences for just shooting like your companion in the movie, and it just was boring and I didn't like it. Sorry, I love Swayze in Point Break, did not like him here.
Yeah. See, I went into this thinking I liked the film. Like, I suggested Red Dawn. I was like, oh yeah, Red Dawn. Like, they go in, they shoot. But then it's like, and they shoot. And then they shoot. And every scene is just, Wolverines!
Yeah, seriously. It's these kids who have no training in firearms defeating these soldiers who've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And they're coming out unscathed. Yeah. And they're all surviving. It's insane.
Not to get too deep into it, I think that it's pretty much just like a xenophobic movie about like people that are way too into American patriotism, who have this like ridiculous idea of like what Cuban people or what Chinese people, like, you know, these are the commies, right? So like, I get it. For 1984, it makes a lot of sense. We're in the middle of a Cold War, and this is pro-U.S. military propaganda, but not really, because it's trying to convince your every man or every kid that like even you could take a rocket launcher to the Russians, and it makes no sense on any geopolitical level. It makes no sense on any military strategy level. The characters have no real arc. They just, like you mentioned, they just go out there and they start killing Russians. And you're right, like, because it's a movie that spends a lot of time with liberating people from this oppressive force, and then what do? You're telling me it's the same 4 or 5 kids for 6 months, when you have a whole group of people that, like Jed's father, Swayze's father in the movie, that's like, you boys, you get out there, you don't cry.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, don't you think if you freed people that thought like that they would fight with you? And the remake, weirdly enough, which isn't a great movie either, but like the remake at least plays with that idea of like, as we liberate people, our forces grow. And this movie that just doesn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So. And then there was also like a weird thing with the one Colonel Tanner. There was like a love thing going between him and like Leah Thompson. It's like, well, you're clearly in your mid to late 30s and she's like a teenager. This is creepy.
Didn't work.
And it was like so unnecessary just to have that at all. So just hating on the movie more.
Yeah. Like I said, this was a movie that I suggested. After watching it, I realized that this is just not a good film on any level. Like the beginning is just screen crawl and it's nonsense. You know, America fell and the Cubans and the Venezuelans and like it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Swayze is pretty handcuffed in this one, right? Like it's just the role is, hey man, we gotta get tough. And Charlie Sheen. It doesn't work. The movie doesn't work, and it's a bad movie. So, I believe you said number 2. That's my number 1. I hated that movie.
No, there's a movie I hated more than that, Reggie. And the movie I hated the most, is Casino Royale.
You know what? It's actually crazy. I didn't put this on my list.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
Yeah, because it should be on my list.
Because we both hated this movie when we had to see it. You know, technically not the source material for the Casino Royale starring Daniel Craig, but still we have the same characters somewhat, and just a clusterfuck of a movie that should not exist. And I can't believe it was released, and you know, not for nothing, but there's some serious star power in that movie too. You got Orson Welles, Ursula Andress, Woody Allen, who should be in jail, I'm pretty sure. Probably. You know, and just to not make it work at all, and just to make it into this stupid spoof movie, which isn't really a spoof movie because you're not really spoofing anything. You're just doing the spy thing poorly. Is that your idea of a spoof?
Yeah. So, like, if you look at something like Austin Powers, right? Like, that's a good spoof movie because, like, James Bond ran its course, more or less. Like, and we brought it back with Daniel Craig and everything like that. But, like, at a certain point, it did become ridiculous.
Yeah.
In 1967, when this movie came out, it wasn't ridiculous yet. This was still the height of the genre. I mean, I think, like, Dr. No had just come out. So, or From Russia with Love. So, like, it makes zero sense to spoof the most popular thing in film at the time, you know, in terms of, like, and especially in terms of the spy thriller. In retrospect, I realized that I hate horror movies so much that I didn't put this on my list. This is a objectively bad movie. You know, if I could revise my list, I won't. But if I could, this would be at the top of it because no scene in this movie is connected to any other scene in this movie.
Because it's not cohesive at all, and that's what we said when we reviewed it. It's just, it feels like, I don't know, between 5 and 7 short little things that aren't connected at all, and you are just trying to play catch up, figuring out why are we here now, and by the time you figure that out, we're on to the next scene, and you're playing that game again. Why are we here now? It's awful, and you know they had problems with the cast, so they had to shoot things differently, and they couldn't even do their original vision, which, oh my god, I can't even imagine if they were able to do that, what awful thing we would have had to see then. But like, it was an awful movie, and I can't believe they actually got like the rights to do Casino Royale. It's pretty impressive, I guess, in that right. If you want to see a complete disaster of a Bond movie, by all means. If you want to ever see a movie with a female Bond, I guess.
Sure.
Which, you know, if you want a parody, there it is right there. Just have the female do it, and then just have her kind of like going out there to like random men and just banging them and just abandoning them.
Yeah,
the way Bond does.
But like this is quite literally like a cartoonish film in the sense that like people blow up and they have angel wings and harps.
Yeah,
I mean that says it right there.
That's literally the ending of the movie.
This is the tone sometimes of this film. Sometimes. Or you could be in a house with a bunch of 16-year-olds and like you're trying to bang, like the whole thing.
It's surprised Woody Allen wasn't in that.
Jimmy Bond. No, there are hints of a movie in this movie, but they are few and far between.
Right. It was just so confusing to watch and irritating at the same time, just because I didn't understand, and it made me feel dumb, even though the movie was dumb. Because I was like, wait, am I supposed to be able to follow this?
No, the movie was dumb.
Oh, it's the movie. It's not me. It's a god-awful movie. Don't watch it. There's nothing in there to like, oh yeah, you gotta see it just for this one scene. There's nothing.
No, unless you want to watch a train wreck, you know. If you want to watch a train wreck, watch the 1967 Casino Royale. But what's interesting about that is that the reboot of the franchise is off the strength of Casino Royale. Like after James Bond did, you know, the Sean Connery years, the Lazenby, like, Brosnan, all that stuff. See, you're a Brosnan James Bond guy. I'm a Connery James Bond guy. I don't know, like when Craig reintroduced the series, Casino Royale was the perfect story because it's it's Bond's first mission, and it's actually a really strong story. And this movie was just so bad at telling it. And no, I 100% agree. Though it's not on my list, it really should have been. And the 1967 James Bond Casino Royale thing is probably the worst movie we watched.
Yes,
easily.
Because it's not a movie. It's just a bunch of scenes shot together.
It's vignettes.
Yeah, it's like, here's something that's a movie. No, it's not. Don't try to do that.
Yeah. But because I'm such a bitch and I don't like scary movies, I got a scary movie on my list. So, okay. That's
Those are our lists. We still have one more category, though. Our last category is, I don't know how we want to phrase this.
So, we've talked about the best originals, the best remakes, the worst originals, and the worst remakes. I think that it is important to have a category of what combination did it the best, right? The best retro versus remake combo. Like, what two films as a unit were the best?
Best retro and remake.
And we didn't talk about this at all beforehand, so I hope I'm not stepping on your list. But for me, I would say the best in tandem combination for me was Infernal Affairs and The Departed.
That was not my choice.
Okay. Now, these are newer films, so I think I'm probably a little biased in that sense that both films are pretty modern and work really well independently. In Infernal Affairs, the way that they tell the story of Infernal Affairs is a lot cleaner than The Departed.
Yes.
But The Departed is such a myriad, like, character-driven storyline, and we get to see some very phenomenal acting from a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I think that because Infernal Affairs is just a strong movie, it falls in the category of foreign films. But if you haven't seen it, go watch Infernal Affairs because it's that strong of a movie. If you like The Departed, you definitely like this movie because. But like The Departed, Nicholson, Wahlberg, DiCaprio, because you Baldwin, man, like
Patriot Act.
There are better remakes that I like. There are better originals that I like. But in tandem, I think that if I had to say the heart of what I think this series is watching two good movies that happen to be about the same thing. And for me, Infernal Affairs and The Departed captured that really well. Like I said, there are original movies I like more. There are remakes I like more. But this combination was just so solid. They made my list. It's close. It's a squeaker. But that's my list.
I think it's a good choice. I think Infernal Affairs has the better story.
Yes.
Just because how tight it is. And I think Departed has the better characters.
Correct.
Hands down. Because, like you said, just Jack Nicholson, DiCaprio. I just love Alec Baldwin. Even Matt Damon is good in that. You know?
Blowing my prince out here. Matt Damon. Yeah.
There's just... I can quote that movie, like, forever. And I really love it. 2 weeks with pay. I still say that. Like,
there's guys you can hit, there's guys you can't hit.
oh, fucking what? See, now we're just going to keep
we're doing it.
But the original is still, like, really good, too. And then the fact that it's a trilogy, and I still have to see the second.
Yeah, I do have to watch more of the Infernal Affairs trilogy.
Yeah. And, they're both really good. It didn't make my list because they are still very similar.
Yes, they are.
It's pretty much. Retro versus remake. It's the same movie, pretty much. It's just a more interesting character study, I think, in the Scorsese version. Yeah. So, but still a very solid original, very enjoyable, and there's definitely some things I like better in the original, and there's a lot of things I like better in the remake. So, two very solid films, and I can see why you would choose that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I would like to highlight some of like over time when you watch a movie like Little Shop of Horrors, for instance. You're watching something from the 60s and you're watching something from like the 80s, 90s, or something like that. Like that is interesting to see that diversion, but for me, both these movies are so damn strong. They're not the best individual movies, but in tandem, that translation from the Chinese film to this American, just let's throw everybody into the mix. I think a lot of people I know, like you mentioned, quote The Departed constantly, and if you have, go watch Infernal Affairs because it might actually be the stronger movie.
Oh yeah, I think it is actually.
I think so.
Just because it's tighter, the
story makes more sense.
Yeah, I had less questions watching Infernal Affairs than I did Departed.
So this is mostly just saying go watch Infernal Affairs because it's a movie that deserves more respect than I think your average American consumer has given.
Mm-hmm. Well said. My choice. I think I'm gonna shock people here with my choice. I tried to pick a movie where the original was really solid, and then I thought the remake was pretty solid, and then you can kind of just watch one without watching the other, or you could watch both and enjoy both because it doesn't really affect how you're gonna feel about one or the other.
Okay.
And my remake also departed enough from the original source material, which kind of merits a viewing of it, just because they did enough changes and it is different enough. I'll say this also too. It's not my favorite movies, but I think they're just together, and what they did with both of these films, I think they're interesting enough. And my choice for best combo is actually Mulan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Shit.
Wow. They're just so different from each other, and they both, you got the heart of the story is just this girl just rising above what she's supposed to be in life, and just ultimately leading the people to victory against an outside threat.
Wow.
And then the way they did it in the remake, I really liked. What they did, and we've done episodes on cartoon movies having real live action remakes, and I hated 101 Dalmatians. I did not hate Mulan. I actually really liked what they did in the remake. I know there's a lot of controversy about it necessarily how they did it, but I still thought it was a really solid film. And they got rid of some of the songs, and I wasn't really a Mulan guy growing up. I'd seen it a handful of times, and it wasn't in my Disney rotation, I guess. I'd seen it, but it wasn't one of my favorites. But I still really like the original Mulan, and there's some good stuff there. And some stuff didn't necessarily age well. And then I do like what they did in the remake. They introduced some new characters. They upped the action a lot. It's a significantly longer movie, but I was okay with that because the action was just so good. I like that Dynasty Warriors action, one person taking on 100 soldiers. Yes, I'm all about that. And just visually speaking, they're both gorgeous movies to look at.
Right. They really are. I think that what's interesting about both our film choices here are we're kind of taking two fairly modern stories or interpretations, and again, obviously fairly modern remakes, if that's the case. And I think you're right. What makes the Mulan story work for me, right? In the original film, there is this element of musical, right? There's some songs in there, things like that, but it's a very classic story of subverting expectation, pushing back against norms, pushing back against tradition, while still embracing tradition.
Yeah.
And I think the remake does a really good job of, yes, I do want to forge on my own to help my family, but she cares a lot about loyalty, honor, truth, and truth. She struggles with that, right? And I think that this remake found its own footing, and I think that when a movie can figure itself out, right? For instance, a movie like Insomnia, right? Sure, that works to an extent, but like you lose something in translation, right? So like there's this darker element to that movie, and when you see the remake, it's like, all right, whatever. This movie, it's okay to lose things in translation because you're telling your own story. So like, yes, ultimately it is a movie about Mulan, but they go about it two different ways. And I think what I love about the remake is that you have this sort of witch character they introduced.
Right.
That like,
yes.
Kind of like we were talking about 310 to Yuma, like you could go this way, you could go that way. That character really adds an element of like, I've been wronged by society, and this is the pathway I chose. Mulan chose to go a different way, and I think because of her loyalty to tradition and family. So it's a beautiful film, really well shot. The action's incredible. The ending sequence left something to be desired, but overall, I thought the Mulan remake was a really good movie. And again, like we said, controversies, but taking that out of it and just looking at the art, interesting choice. I did not think you would say that today, and but I do agree with you that the original film is really strong and funny and gets the job done. But like the remake took it up another level, and like in combination, they're probably two of the strongest films we've watched.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the animated one's a lot more kid friendly.
Yes,
because you got the talking dragons and talking figures. Yeah. So it's more kiddie. It's still like it's heavily fantasy, obviously, and then the remake not necessarily like in reality, but it's a little more grounded in reality because we don't have like talking animals. We still see a phoenix. We don't know if it's really there, if it's just seeing it, and obviously the action is like you can't do that in real life.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like that fantasy element of it, but like it works. It just so works in the world that they built. See, when you set a tone. You see, Reggie, this is what makes a good movie. When you set a tone and you kind of follow that throughout, and you stick to the landing, that's what usually makes an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
When you have a tone and you don't fucking hit the mark and you kind of go everywhere, then I don't know what I'm watching. See?
Yeah.
So the remake does set its own tone on pretty early,
right?
And then it just really sticks to it, and it works so well.
Really early. I mean, like you have this sequence in like the wheat field or something like that, and she's like practicing her sword. She's talking about ki, whatever, and like now we've introduced this magical element. So we had already this character that was extraordinary because she didn't feel like she was necessarily one of the girls that would go out there and bring honor to her family, and she brought honor a different way. And this movie is like, the honor, but also there's this like innate power that I'm capable of, and by introducing, like we mentioned, that witch, we could see someone else going that route, and like, dude, it worked a lot because there was an addition there, and I think where a lot of these remakes miss, where we usually complain, is that something's taken away. So like, I brought up Insomnia in the sense like, which isn't a bad remake, right? But like, there's this darker element of the film that's gone. We were talking about Psycho a little bit earlier, which is effectively the same movie, but something's missing, right? Like, and oftentimes what makes us not like a remake is that an element of the tone or the story was missed.
Right.
And what probably helped, probably why we have this combination right now, is because these are more modern films. It's really hard to miss the point. Like if you made something in the 90s or the 2000s, when you make it again, it's not like we're 50 years removed from it.
Right.
But going back to one of your films earlier, like 310 to Yuma, to me, felt like one of those movies that like, yes and. Like,
right, exactly. It elevated it.
Yeah.
That's why that was my number one. But going back to Mulan, just again, it didn't really like, it wasn't the most innovative movie.
No.
Like I'd seen most of this stuff before, but when you do it well, I can go along for that ride. Like, okay, having a phoenix, and then what does a phoenix do? It dies and rises from the ashes, and then kind of having Mulan do the exact same thing
with her identity.
Exactly. And then it's been done before, but like, when you know how to do it well, like I'm on board for that, and I'll be like in the crowd going, "Fuck yeah, that's right!" You get out there in your fucking wardrobe, and then I'm like, I'm cheering, like you can do it well. I'm on board, and I think they really did it well, and I just don't think this movie gets enough credit just because of the way it came out, and then like it was only like available like on Disney Plus. We bought it, right? Yeah. So it's like it didn't get what it would have gotten. It had just been released in theaters if we didn't have like, COVID.
I agree. I mean, look, I will say this: that when she puts on her traditional sort of like women's garb,
right,
and is on that horse and swinging that sword,
that's a powerful moment.
Oh boy, that's a good movie, man. Yeah, no, I would never have guessed in a million years that you would have said Mulan today.
Me neither.
But like as you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, no, it makes you're making solid points. It is a great combination. No one can complain about watching the original Mulan, and I don't think that like if you're being again, like we said, all the other BS that has nothing to do with the movie aside, right? Like if you're being honest, like that interpretation was really, really strong and solid. And like they were like, no, fuck it, we're not gonna do music, right? Like that when a remake is like, no, I made this choice, and it works.
Right.
It's awesome.
It works with subject matter because we're at war. We're not going to be singing songs the whole time, right? Let's talk about what it's like to pretend to be a man,
right,
trying to fit in, and then ultimately surpass all of my peers.
Yes.
And how am I going to deal with that? Because if the truth comes out, it means possibly death or exile for me and my family. It's some serious consequences, and I enjoyed the ride.
I'm glad you brought that up because it is one of my favorite movies that we watched because the contrast was really, really strong, and yeah, no, this is a solid choice, man.
Cool. All right, cool. All right, so I guess that's it. I mean, did we want to talk about any other films that we had reviewed?
Let's do a quick honorable mention right here.
Okay.
A movie that didn't quite make the cut today, but I wanted to talk about is Solaris. I love Solaris. The original, the remake, I'm okay with it too. But like, I really, really like that original film. It's very artsy. It's not an American film, and it just, I don't know. There's something about that movie that spoke to me. I think it might be my favorite movie that we've watched because I had no prior experience with it, and I was really impressed by what they were able to do. It's too long.
Yeah, there's that one scene where you're just following the guy for like 10 minutes. Driving. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that part could be cut. But like I think that original to me is the essence of what I want to do with this show, which is that bringing the audience, you guys, something that you may not have heard of, something that you may not have seen, and by doing that, highlighting the fact that first of all, Hollywood makes a remake of anything. But sometimes you have to go back and watch these originals, and like it's such a strong movie. Right. It's on my honorable mention. It's not the best movie I watched. It's not the best combination. It's not but it's a good movie that I wanted to talk about, and that's what this section's for.
I honestly think if it was an American release, I think it would be, lauded more.
Yeah, I agree.
I think because it's so much Kubrick in that film, and then everybody like wets themselves over Kubrick. So I feel like if that was an American release, more people would have seen it. More people would be praising it like the Kubrick film.
Had Kubrick had made this movie, right, we would be on this movie.
It would be like the number one Kubrick movie.
Yeah. It was like Space Odyssey or Solaris. I don't know. Yeah. It really, seriously.
It definitely reaches those levels at times. When I was watching, I was like, wow, like that's totally like a Cooper thing.
Yeah. And the problem is that like there are times where the movie isn't that, right?
Yeah.
Like there are times, like you said, the driving thing, that's nonsense. But like overall, I thought it was a really strong movie, and it was one of my favorite watches. It was one of our earlier episodes, so if you're newer to the series, go check out the Solaris episode and check out Solaris. It's a good movie.
I mean, if I had to put an honorable mention or anything, I'm just like, a movie I'm like, it's actually pretty good. It's the original Arthur.
Oh, wow. That was fun.
I genuinely like that movie, and Dudley Moore just brought like, he obviously brought the over-the-top humor, but he definitely just like slowed it down at moments where I could like really sympathize with this character at the same time. And obviously, one of the most catchy movie themes that we've ever heard. I'm gonna listen to that after this. You better believe it. Just a really enjoyable movie, Arthur, all around. Everybody's portrayal in that movie, and especially what's his name, the butler guy.
Oh shit,
that guy was
he's so good.
He's so good in that movie.
When I wash your dick, son. Yeah.
Hobson, yes, Hobson. Okay, and Hobson in that
Oh,
movie is just—he's so good.
He's so good.
Honestly, without Hobson, I don't know if the movie works as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about the In-Laws being one of my favorite originals because the humor holds up well. Arthur's one of those.
Yeah.
And they really go through some like taboo things
They
too.
do. They do.
And that definitely I don't think would be addressed in today's films that aren't necessarily like offensive. So I don't know why they wouldn't touch it today. But like, I really found Arthur like just incredibly delightful. I'll just say that. It's a really fun movie.
See, and what's interesting is like Solaris, that was one of your recommendations. Arthur was definitely one of your recommendations because I had no background with it. But watching it, I'm like, this shit is funny. This is some really funny stuff. And the Hobson portrayal definitely helps keep the movie grounded in a way. Because like Arthur is a drunk.
He's a drunk asshole.
right.
Obnoxious. You can't stop fucking laughing at his own jokes. We all have friends like that. I'm like that.
Yeah. Like I think one of the lines you said was like the laugh is kind of like Jaws. Like yeah. But no, that's a strong honorable mention. I did really like that original. I think that unfortunately the remake probably brought that down in terms of the discussion today. But like the original Arthur is a very funny film. It's got a lot of heart where you're not expecting it.
Right.
Yeah. So in the soundtrack, I mean, that one song.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna be listening to that today.
Yeah. And and then that's a good example of sometimes you don't need Russell Brand to reprise this role. So it's okay. Like we got it the first time.
Yeah.
So awesome, man.
I feel like that was pretty solid list.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point we'll just ask you guys, what did you guys think? Did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? Are there any movies you definitely thought we should have put on any of our lists?
Yes.
Let us know. I mean, what were some of your favorites? Definitely let us know that too, because we're always open to like things we missed and stuff like that.
Totally. I mean, like in the comment section, I would love to see people. What are your top 3 remakes? Top 3 originals?
Yeah.
Top 3 worst remakes? Top 3 worst originals? And your best combo? We've got our opinions. I'm sure you've got yours, and I'm interested in how much carryover there was, but I think we did ultimately have our own style when it came to this.
Yeah, especially with that the combo thing. Me picking Mulan out of nowhere.
Final combo.
No, definitely want to hear your top 3s, guys. So definitely leave them in the comments.
Nice. Well, as always, I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. This has been another episode of
Retro versus Remake.